This is the News 4 Rundown.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the News 4 Rundown. I'm Un Yang. It's Wednesday, April 8th. Here's a look at some of the stories we're following for you tonight. Coming up, the war in the Middle East is impacting drinking water here at home. We'll explain the connection and what it all could mean for your health. Plus, AI is becoming stronger every day. One company now says its latest tool is too powerful. What the model is capable of doing and the guardrails they're pulling out in place. Then a group is expanding its Kinship care program to keep children out of the foster care system. But we begin tonight with big changes for what was once Six Flags America. The Prince George's County staple will soon get a facelift, thanks in part to a hometown hero. News 4 has learned the property has been sold to an investment group that includes Prince George's County native and NBA superstar Kevin Durant. News 4's Darcy Spencer has the latest on the deal and the future plans for this plot of land.
This is a huge win for Prince George's County. You know, when Six Flags closed back in November, there were a lot of questions about what would happen to that property. Would it sit vacant? What would go in there? Well, we now know that this property has been sold, and Kevin Durant is one of the owners. Here's what we know so far. The property is being purchased by an investment group that includes NBA All-Star Kevin Durant, a Prince George's County native, and TPA Group. Now, we don't know exactly what's planned for the site, but the county exec says it's going to be a destination, upscale dining, entertainment, and possibly a sports-related aspect to the property. The property has a long history dating back to the 70s when it was a wildlife center, then Wild World, and eventually becoming Six Flags. Here's what the county executive had to say a short time ago.
I'm energized by the vision, creativity, and commitment of this new team. Their leadership marks a major step forward for our county and creates a meaningful opportunity to transform the property into a destination that reflects the expectations of our residents and strengthens economic development across the region.
And we also heard from Councilmember Walla Blagay.
We're looking at a group of investors that are committed, that come from the county, which is important. They made it clear that they're going to do a series of surveys and community meetings before they come up with the concept of what's going to come to the Six Flags site, which is good, because that was a concern the community had, that they would not be engaged.
County leaders and the investment group want to make sure they hear from the community. What would you like to see go into that site? There are some meetings that will happen to get that community input starting in the next 30 to 45 days. In Largo, Darcy.
Our coverage of the Six Flags sale is not stopping here. News 4's Joseph Olmo is picking up the story tonight. Tune in for the very latest coming up on News 4 at 11. Now to some of today's other top stories. Today, Maryland Governor Wes Moore signed the budget for the 2027 fiscal year. The budget totals more than $70 billion. It was crafted to address the state's $1.5 billion deficit. The governor says it will put $100 million back into people's pockets with utility fee relief. Republican leaders say the budget merely defers tough decisions until after November's election. 204 fallen firefighters are set to be honored on May 2nd at the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial in Frederick County, Maryland. But the memorial was closed because of the partial government shutdown. That involves the Department of Homeland Security. Today, the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation told News 4 it is pleading with federal leaders to reopen the memorial ahead of the event. Taxpayers will foot at least some of the bill for the new arch President Trump wants to build. The 250-foot structure would be built near Arlington National Cemetery. The nonprofit news outlet Notice reports the White House plans to use $15 million from the National Endowment for the Humanities. The NEH is responsible for handing out federal grants for arts programs. The man accused of touching women's hair on metro trains was arrested again for a third time in just months. This time, Brian Bettencourt is facing a new stalking charge. According to court filings, the alleged stalking incident was caught on video and previously reported by News 4 last month. A judge ruled Bettencourt should remain in jail for at least a week. He will have a detention hearing in D.C. next week. Nearly 6 years after a patient died inside the Psychiatric Institute of Washington, 3 former employees have been indicted on a charge of criminal negligence. 2 of the 3 were working as psychiatric counselors, and the other was a registered nurse. Prosecutors say they neglected to help a 58-year-old man who was clearly in distress. News 4's Paul Wagner attended a news conference with the U.S. Attorney for D.C.
Good evening. The U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro announced the indictment here at the U.S. Attorney's Office just a short while ago. She said that 3 former employees identified as 37-year-old Nelson Kuma, 45-year-old Richard Haunow, and 68-year-old Norma Munoz Bent made their first appearances in D.C. Superior Court yesterday. They all pleaded not guilty, and they were all released on their own personal recognizance. Here at a news conference at the U.S. Attorney's Office, Pirro said that this was all captured on video, and she described what happened that day on April 26th, 2020.
This trio did nothing to help this patient. They didn't check him, they didn't reposition him, they didn't turn him, they didn't call a code blue, they didn't check his pulse, they didn't attempt CPR, they didn't initiate resuscitation efforts. They did nothing. Instead, they chatted, they walked around, they didn't touch him while he lay on a mattress, dying.
The incident was investigated at first by Disabilities Rights DC, which issued a lengthy report on the incident, but for reasons that are still unclear, it never rose to the level of prosecution until now. The U.S. Attorney says a prosecutor in her office had been tracking the case for years, but when asked today why it did not become a criminal case until now, Jeanine Pirro declined to say, other than it's being handled now, she said. The man who died is only being identified by his initials, and according to the U.S. Attorney, had a medical emergency 2 days before his death and had to be resuscitated. She said he was supposed to have one-on-one care at the facility because of his condition. Disability Rights DC issued a 2021 public report detailing what it calls a lack of oversight at the Psychiatric Institute of Washington. The report includes sketches of the incident. Disability Rights says the sketches were drawn based off of videotape footage from inside the patient's hotel room. There are just so many questions in this case now as to why it took so long for this to rise to the level of a criminal prosecution. The U.S. Attorney said earlier today, quote, "The 3 had a legal and ethical duty to act, and they chose not to. And my office will not tolerate that." Outside the U.S. Attorney's Office in Northwest D.C., Paul Wagner, News 4.
The war with Iran is affecting the tap water of nearly 2 million people in Maryland. WSSC Water says it is temporarily reducing the level of fluoride it adds to drinking water. The agency says the chemical compound used in fluoride is supplied by a company in Israel, and there have been shortages since the war began. News 4's Dominic Moody has what you need to know.
From drinking water to brushing your teeth, Prince George's and Montgomery County WSSC Water customers can expect a drop in fluoride levels in the water supply. The temporary reduction comes during a nationwide supply chain issue for the important mineral used to prevent cavities and tooth decay.
One of the major manufacturers of fluoride is in Israel, and they have had some significant operational challenges due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East.
1.9 million customers in Prince George's County and Montgomery County are affected by this reduction of fluoride.
We are reducing the amount of volume, the amount of fluoride that we add, very small amount. The water is safe. People do not have to be concerned about the water quality.
WSSC Water says it will still receive shipments of the compound, but at a lower volume. Fluoride is not mandated by federal or state regulations, but is endorsed by leading health organizations like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the American Dental Association to strengthen teeth.
Impactful, but I don't think it's going to be detrimental because it is a temporary problem.
Dr. Dennis O'Leary is a practicing dentist. He, along with other teeth experts, say there are a few workarounds for patients who are high risk of tooth decay.
Every supermarket you can buy something called nursery water, and It's purified water.
Fluoride in a prescription strength form. It might be a totally different product like a hydroxyapatite and specialized prescription toothpaste that may be helpful.
WSSC Water says it plans to return to normal fluoride levels once the shortage ends. In Montgomery County, Dominique Moody, News 4.
Washington Aqueduct provides water to DC Water, Fairfax Water, and Arlington County customers. The agency tells News 4 its water treatment remains unaffected, and it continues to actively track the supply chain to maintain consistent levels for customers. Much more to come tonight on the News 4 Rundown. Storm Team 4 Chief Meteorologist Doug Kammerer is tracking when we could see some warmer temperatures.
And it was another chilly day across our area. Temperatures 10 degrees below average tonight. Another freeze warning to the west and a frost advisory. And I'm tracking some warmer numbers in the forecast.
AI is getting smarter and more powerful by the day. And now one of the leading AI companies says its latest model isn't safe to be released to the public just yet. The New York Times is reporting that Anthropic will instead release its new AI model called Claude Mythos Preview to a select group of technology companies for testing before it goes public. Joining us now to help make sense of all this is Jared Perlow, who covers AI for NBC News. Jared, our viewers might be familiar with Claude, but can you start with the basics? What is Claude Mythos Preview, and why, if Anthropic has it, would they say, we have it, but it's not ready yet?
Yeah, so this new model from Anthropic is the most advanced in their Claude family of AI models. So if you use Claude, or maybe you're familiar with their competitor, OpenAI's ChatGPT systems, these are basically really advanced, cutting-edge AI chatbots, essentially. But Anthropic discovered when they were releasing or working on this new model that its capabilities are just far past anything that we've seen before in terms of what they can do, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. And what they discovered with this new model is that it was finding thousands of cybersecurity vulnerabilities, far passing the abilities of any human, or all but the most advanced human software engineers. So they basically said, hey, let's pump the brakes. Before we release this publicly, we want to basically help companies, tech companies like Microsoft, like NVIDIA, shore up their cyber defenses so we can maybe in the future release this model more safely.
It's, I think, mind-boggling to me, to a lot of people, that the people who built something right now don't have the capability to control it. Is this something that we should expect to happen more as new and more sophisticated AI platforms are released?
I think honestly it is. So one of the lead developers of this new model called it terrifying. He posted that on X this morning. Wow. And when the people who are building it tell you that, you know, obviously there are reasons they might be saying this for marketing or to drum up interest. Obviously we're talking about it right now, but I do think they're mostly saying this in good faith. And I think people should really be aware that kind of we're entering a new paradigm of AI models, where if you can just imagine you have a data center full of these AI models running 24/7, they don't have to take lunch breaks, they don't have to sleep. They're constantly looking for vulnerabilities in different software programs that can just unleash a new wave of potential cyber attacks, of exploits that humans previously couldn't perform.
Anthropic has also been in the news recently because of a clash with the Defense Department. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's really interesting that this is coming at this time because Anthropic is currently involved in a lawsuit with the U.S. government, with the Department of War, with many agencies in the Trump administration. So this goes back to Anthropic basically saying, we think we're going to develop models that are so powerful that the government shouldn't be able to do absolutely anything it wants with it. The government said, well, actually, we want to be able to do whatever we want with it. So I think it's a really interesting and kind of frightening issue we're all starting to deal with.
Right, and it's almost like Anthropic is saying, like, well, you can't have this one, but perhaps you could have this one. Let's still talk about it. NBC News AI reporter Jared Perlow, thanks so much for helping us understand all of this. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And then we're going to have a little bit of hot weather, Doug, but first we have to get through the cold that's still hanging around in April.
Yeah, we talk about that spring roller coaster, right? Right now we're down, and we're going way down tonight. Another freeze warning in parts of the area, but then we go way up, almost too far up for some people.
Okay, right. Because it's April. Not for me.
But for some people,
yes.
Let's talk about what we've got out there. High temperatures today, about 10 degrees below average. 55 D.C., 57 in Warrenton. It was rather chilly, and this morning we saw temperatures well below freezing. We'll see that again in some areas tonight, but not everywhere. We've got clear skies for the most part, not much in the way of wind. We saw beautiful blue skies today with all of that sunshine. Now temperatures of 51 degrees. Winds out of the east-southeast at about 11 miles per hour. Not much in the way of wind gusts out there, but we are starting to see the wind shift around just a little bit. That will aid in helping us to warm during the day tomorrow. Right now, current temperature sitting at 50 in Gaithersburg, 53 in Manassas, 54 in Leesburg, 55 in Culpeper. So a cool night, and we'll continue to see these numbers drop tonight, and that's why we have a freeze warning in effect for everybody here in the purple. That includes areas like Warrenton, Leesburg, Frederick, Hagerstown, Winchester, and then from D.C. south and eastward, this is all a frost advisory. Now, I'm not expecting a lot of frost on cars and things like that, but I would have the ice scraper ready just in case if you're up and out the door before, say, 6:30. That's when the sun comes up and it'll start to melt things off pretty quickly if we do, in fact, get any frost. Now, we're not dealing with any rain out there, but take a look at the cloud cover. That's down to the south, and look where it's coming. Making its way in from the south. That is a warmer direction of the clouds and of our temperatures, and we'll start to see those numbers going up during the day tomorrow. But once again tonight, they have to go down first. And look where they go by tomorrow morning. Temperatures right around or below freezing in spots. Now, you can get frost up to, say, 36, 37, even 38 degrees. So we could see frost even when D.C. at 35. So heads up there. Once again, I'm not too concerned about that. High temperatures tomorrow around 60, maybe up to 62 in the city. I'm going 60 degrees right now, but I could see us at 62 if our wind direction comes off the right way. 74 degrees on Friday. Fantastic Friday. The weekend looks nice, a little cooler, but still very nice. And then we talk about the heat. Boom. 89 on Tuesday, 91 on Wednesday, the first 90 of the year expected next week.
Looks great. Thank you, Doug. A federally funded pilot program aimed at helping students improve their reading skills has proven to be a huge success here in D.C. The program targets some of the lowest performing students in the district. As News 4's Mark Seagraves reports, significant improvements were seen at all grade levels.
The program targeted primarily African American and low-income students who traditionally had the lowest test scores in reading. Antoinette Mitchell, D.C.'s State Superintendent of Education, is, to say the least, thrilled with the results.
Oh, absolutely. We are so excited about the results. The kids did so well that they actually shrunk a third of the achievement gap that exists in our schools today between those students who participated in this grant and those that did not. So we are over the moon in terms of the outcomes of this work.
The superintendent's office just released this report detailing the results of the 5-year program funded by a $16 million federal grant from the U.S. Department of Education. The findings are impressive across all ages.
We saw results with our youngest learners having increased in language usage. We saw growth at the 3rd grade level, at the 8th grade level, in high school. We saw 54% more growth in the students who participated in this grant than their peers. We saw 60 to 70% growth in 4-year-olds' language growth skills.
Mitchell tells News 4 the program focused on the teachers and staff at schools, helping them to rethink how they teach reading.
Really internalize the idea that phonics and phonemic awareness is important and has to be taught, as well as vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. Once teachers deeply internalized this, they then had the time and the space through this grant to meet on a regular basis to review student data in terms of their reading, comprehension, and other things, and then to structure instruction based on data.
The program also utilized Saturday classes, after-school tutoring, as well as outreach to the students' families. The program focused on 17,000 students in D.C. charter schools. Mitchell says it's being expanded next year to an additional 25,000 students, including students in traditional public schools. In the district, Mark Seagraves, News 4.
The pilot program is made possible through the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant, which is funded by the Department of Education. That grant is aimed specifically at improving literacy rates among the most disadvantaged students. All right, stick around. The News4 Rundown will be right back after this break. This month's Finding Families highlights a local group expanding its Kinship care program to keep children out of foster care. News4's Melissa Millay explains how the group is working to pair children with family and friends instead.
This is Maryland's first Kinship support hub. Kinship caregivers are relatives or close family friends who step in to care for a child when their parents are unable to. Two sisters who started Charlene's Circle of Support have been working online or out of a rented space until now. Their nonprofit, named after their mother, has just opened a brick and mortar location. Meet Juanita and Shanae, the founders of Charlene's Circle of Support, a nonprofit born from their experience growing up.
Let's do something for the youth that are impacted by parental mental illness, substance abuse, and incarceration like we dealt with.
They're dedicated to uplifting youth and the kinship caregivers who raise them, often grandmothers, aunts, other relatives, or close family friends, asked to step in with no warning, no training, no financial support when biological parents cannot.
From the hospital to home, our grandmother had us. As our grandmother got older, she developed Alzheimer's, and then we had to go live with our aunt.
Charlene's Circle offers support groups, wellness programs.
Right now, we have assisted over 100 kinship caregivers in 2 years.
With resources those caregivers may not even know actually exist.
It's really nice to know that someone who went through something like this is taking their time and committing to other families that are struggling.
How they can help much easier now with a brick and mortar location.
We will have our own space that we are opening to the public at the Nonprofit Center in Anne Arundel County. It is a co-working space for small nonprofits.
Bank says 2.5 million children nationwide are raised by relatives, and 6,000 Maryland kids live in kinship care.
So Governor Wes Moore in 2024 established the Kin First Initiative in Charlene's Circle of Support. Since we heard about it, we have been really pushing this mission and initiative to ensure that we are going to be that household name in Maryland.
They already have plans to expand into Prince George's and Harford counties.
I am feeling so proud, so amazed.
And they know Mom Charlene is watching from above.
I know that she's saying, those are my girls. I know that that's what she is saying, because no matter where our mother was, she always was supportive. Even though she may have been going through rehab or she wasn't even living in the same state as us a lot of times, she always was there. She was at our birthdays, holidays. She wrote us letters. She called us all the time. And this just shows how important family is in general.
Juanita and Shanae would love to continue to expand and make this a full-time job. For more information on how to connect with Charlene's Circle, head over to my social media pages.
And that's going to do it for the News4 Rundown for this Wednesday night. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to join us again tonight for News4 at 11. For now, I'm Mun Yang. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.